I have a question. I have a Rolls-Royce, an electric Rolls-Royce, and you know how you get premium petrol in your car? Do you do premium electricity? It's so quiet. Honestly, it's virtually silent in here. I'm not sure I like it. Make a noise, for God's sake. Say something. Welcome to Rolls-Royce's first ever electric car. They call it the Spectre. And actually, if you got a car aimed at billionaires, naming it after a crime syndicate of evil billionaires feels quite brave. But let's not worry about that, because this thing has been a long time coming.
See, Rolls-Royce has been planning an EV for a little while now, about 120 years in fact. It's important not to rush these things. The Spectre is a two-door, four-seater coupe that measures a stately 5.5 meters from prow to stern. Yeah, we're getting the yacht talk in early.
But while it might have the dimensions of a village primary school, this is actually the most aerodynamic Rolls-Royce ever. Drag coefficient 0.25, and it's got the widest grille on any Rolls-Royce, but notice it's actually subtly rounded to cut through the air more effortlessly. And this bad boy up here, the Spirit of Ecstasy, is leaning subtly forward. Think, I don't know, like Kate Winslet in Titanic, or an Olympic ski jumper. The other thing you might want to know is that she is very protective of herself. If some ruffian comes along and tries to steal her, she hides underneath the bonnet. Come out, it's safe. No one's gonna hurt you. Ooh. See, told you, slippery.
Speaking of slipping, don't let a brand new, free electric car slip through your fingers. Auto Trader give away an electric car every month for absolutely nothing. To be in with a chance of winning something like this, or this, or this, for nothing whatsoever, click the link down below.
With no big V12 engine under the bonnet, you'd think there'd be space under there for your mink shooting jackets or a caviar fountain. But you'd be wrong, because instead you have whatever that is. Looks like the top of a posh barbecue.
But there is a decent boot at the back, 490 litres. And besides, luggage isn't really an issue for your average Rolls owner. If you've overpacked, you just get your man to follow you with your luggage in the staff Cullinan. But still, it's nice to have the option.
The wheels are 22 inches as standard. These are the optional 23s, and as always, they come with Rolls-Royce's traditional static center caps, which keep the R logo always upright. I've always wondered how they did that. But how would they feed the hamsters? Anyway, you might have also spotted some condensation in these center caps. That's not a manufacturing defect, that's a £6,000 option, so you got to pay extra for that frosted look.
Anyhow, the Spectre is based on Rolls' existing aluminium space frame architecture, but with a massive battery pack now slung across its floor, offering 102 kilowatt hours of usable battery capacity.
And that battery actually makes a lot of sense. The Spectre is 30% stiffer than any petrol-powered Rolls-Royce. You see, everyone's always going on about the downsides of EVs, but they also have an upside. Electricity is stiffer. I also love the design. It's so clean, so simple, no bells and whistles, which is probably a good thing because bells and whistles might be quite noisy.
Overall, it looks magnificent, like a big, beautiful purple aubergine. But I suppose they're not going to put that in the brochure. What you will find in there though are the Spectre's party piece, the doors.
And these doors are the biggest ever found on any Rolls-Royce, and they open the wrong way. Plus, they're electrically assisted. I'm not pulling, by the way. The car's doing it pretty much by itself. And as always, you've got the Rolls-Royce umbrellas in the bulkhead. And because this is an electric Rolls-Royce, these umbrellas are now motorized. They open electronically. Only joking. Still, I've got to do manual labor with a £400,000 Rolls-Royce, honestly. Anyway, another cool feature, when I get in and put my foot on the brake, the door closes automatically. Mogul flex.
This might be the first electric Rolls-Royce, but inside they've resisted the temptation to go all space age. Quite the opposite. The cabin is proper, opulent, old school Rolls.
It's constructed of many, many cows, all of whom lived a life of luxury, all 24 of them before they passed away. There's leather everywhere in here, including on the indicator stalk. Honestly, I don't think I'll be able to look at a regular naked indicator ever again. And look at the carpets, that is a thick shag. The materials in here are on point. The wood, amazing. The metal on these organ stop vent controls and on the vents themselves, listen, amazing. Plus new ambient lights, stars in the doors, and a new starlight headliner, this time with shooting stars. There's one.
If you happen to be a passenger princess, the rear isn't a bad place to take all of this in. There's plenty of space for grown-ups, as long as you don't have the dimensions of a basketball player and you don't mind adjusting the front seats before you crawl into the back.
But really, this is a Rolls-Royce, so it's best experienced from the front in these glorious seats, which are palatial. They'll cool you, they'll warm you, and they'll massage any part of you that you want massaged. And in the name of science, I'm gonna actually give that a go now. So if you wouldn't mind, just shoo, 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 shoo. Oh. Ah.
Rory.
Oh.
Rory, your mic's still on.
Yeah, I know. Oh.
Still switched on, Rory.
Sorry.
Okay, we should probably get on the move. Rolls-Royce, for some reason, consider discussing performance numbers a little vulgar, but I don't, so let's have a chat about what makes the Spectre move.
There's a big electric motor around the back and a smaller electric motor up front, together making a pretty hefty 585 PS and 900 Newton meters of torque. It'll do 0 to 60 in around 4.5 seconds, and it will carry on up to a speed of 155 miles an hour. It has what I like to describe as an elegant sufficiency of power. It never feels violently fast, but you've always got ample power in reserve.
The Spectre might give you 1,000 options when it comes to massaging your nether regions, but when it comes to driving, not so much.
There are no toggleable, configurable drive modes in the Spectre. You got a couple of options. One of them is you go forward, and the other one is you go backwards. You can't alter the steering, suspension, or the powertrain. And that's because Rolls-Royce believe that all that stuff is kind of beneath their customers. Let's face it, people who own a Rolls-Royce don't even iron their own shirts. They're not going to alter their own suspension modes, are they? But there is one exception. This B button, you push that, and you increase the level of brake regeneration. It works pretty effectively. When you lift off the accelerator, it slows the car down, but for me, I much prefer the feeling of the car sailing under its own mass. That, to me, that's a proper Rolls-Royce.
Given the Spectre's container ship proportions, you might assume that in the corners, things would be a little terrifying, but they aren't.
Sure, this thing might weigh 3 tons, but it's super composed when, as Rolls-Royce put it, you need to make progress. Tip it into a corner and you are really surprised about how composed it is. The body control is utterly magnificent and there's a surprising amount of grip as you enter a corner. It's got adaptive air springs, adaptive dampers, and some very hefty anti-roll bars to keep it nice and level in the corners. All right, It's not a Caterham, but it's not a big topply mess either. One thing I really like are these brakes. You get such nice, fine control of the throttle pedal. The car responds to every millimeter of pressure on that pedal, and it's really a joy to use. I'm surprised. I thought that with this much power and this much weight, I'd be mashing the brake pedal, praying to God that this car will come to a stop. But actually, it's pretty impressive in that department.
Mostly though, in the Spectre, going quickly is pretty pointless. You don't feel the need to drive it on the enormous door handles. It's far better to take it easy and enjoy the extraordinary refinement. Mostly, what you notice is just how freakishly quiet it is in here. Back in the late 50s, they used to say the loudest noise in a Rolls-Royce comes from the electric clock. But now, the loudest noise in the car is me. Obviously, there's no engine noise, but it's also thanks to the battery, which acts as 700 kilograms of soundproofing. There's acoustic foam in the tires too. Basically, anywhere Rolls could jam insulation, they have. But they haven't nailed it.
You see, the problem is, when you've got an extremely quiet car, you start to hear other undesirable noises. And in the case of the Spectre, there is a very small but very noticeable sound coming from the left-hand side of the passenger cabin. I believe it's the fan for the air conditioning system, for which I don't seem to be able to find a way to switch off completely. I've got it in off, I've got AC off, but I can always hear that sound very faintly, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it does annoy me slightly. I think if this car had a V8 engine or a V12 engine, you probably wouldn't notice little things like that, because the sound of an ICE engine would mask those undesirable noises. And in fact, the vibration from the engine itself would go some way to minimizing the effect of other unwanted vibrations. But now that's gone, you do notice other things. And I do wonder what other things might pop up as this car ages. Will there be squeaks and rattles that you'll notice even more than you would if you were in an ICE car? Visibility isn't the greatest. You're sat really low down in this vast expanse of wood, metal, and leather. The dashboard's really high. You can't really see the end of the bonnet, and that means that negotiating through traffic might become tricky. But then I suppose if you're a Rolls-Royce owner, you could just hire a team of people to clear the path for you. That's what I'd do.
And then there's the range. Rolls claims the Spectre will do about 330 miles between charges. Real world, it'll be less. There are plenty of electric cars that will go way further on a single charge, but apparently that's not an issue for Rolls-Royce drivers.
When Rolls-Royce asked their most loyal customers how much range they would like for an electric car, most of them said, look, if I'm driving more than 200 miles, I'll just take the helicopter. I'd never thought of that, but it makes sense.
And while the Spectre might be quite affordable compared to a helicopter, when compared to a regular car, it really isn't.
Prices start at £330,000, but they will go north of 400 grand when you start to add some options, which you probably will. However, it's pretty cheap to run by Rolls-Royce standards. You can plug it in at home and brim the thing for less than a tenner using cheap electricity.
Though actually, I reckon charging up might pose the biggest issue for this first all-electric Rolls. And that's because if you buy a new petrol-powered Rolls, you're not going to fill it up with regular unleaded, are you? You probably won't fill it up at all. You'll have a man for that. But he's going to fill it up with the good stuff, V-Power Ultimate Synergy Premium Plus. But buy an electric Rolls and you're expected to brim it with the same standard issue electrons that us standard issue folk use to power our Nissan Leafs and kettles and toasters. Surely there must be something more exclusive for the discerning Rolls-Royce buyer.
No, so all of the electricity should work. Should all work the same in terms of the workings of an EV.
Right. You don't do anything more sort of upmarket? I'm happy to pay. No, we don't know. It all kind of all electricity kind of comes through equally. Okay, nothing with like, you know how you get like a higher octane rating, like extra electrons or anything like that. So,
yeah, no. Unfortunately, kind of electricity doesn't work like that. No.
Interesting. All right. Thanks very much. I'll try somewhere else.
Yep. No problem.
Sorry Spectre owners, it looks like you're stuck with regular, commoner electricity. So, I guess the big question with the Spectre is, does electric power enhance or ruin that double R flavour?
You see, Rolls-Royces have always been unique, a bit idiosyncratic, and there was always a danger that going electric would render these cars a bit soulless. However, going electric doesn't detract from the Rolls-Royce experience. I would say, if anything, it actually adds to it.
No one ever bought a Rolls-Royce for its screaming, hydrocarbon-snorting internal combustion engine. Rolls-Royces have always been about being as quiet, as soothing, and as cosseting as possible, providing ample power without undue drama. In other words, electric and Rolls are a perfect fit.
This car is tier 1 waft. If you want the ultimate in 21st century luxury, the Spectre is blazing a trail. It's just doing it very, very quietly.